Hi everyone, I'm Moazzez from Biohack Real. I want to welcome everyone to our podcast interview. My guest today is Dr. Andres Zuleta, who is a family medical practitioner. He lives in Long Island, Hawaii, and he's the founder of Samasta Health. Samasta Foundation is a group of companies with the purpose of providing healthcare to distant regions in poor countries, and with the purpose of helping with accelerating patients' wellness process. Samasta's mission is to create a shift in patients' life from living only state to the state of thriving. Dr. Zuleta was trained at the University of South Alabama. He has practiced in the states of New York, Connecticut, Alabama, and Hawaii. He spends half of his time in the Big Island of Hawaii doing hospital medicine and critical care. In the other half, he is doing global medicine at Samasta Health Foundation through telehealth. Andres, very glad to have you. Take a minute, please, and fill up some gaps from the bio and give us a glimpse into your personal life.
Well, Dr. Moazzez, thank you for having me here, and thank you for the great introduction, man. I think you nailed it all. I think you get such a great introduction, so thank you for that. Personally, I live here in Hawaii, and just being thrilled to be here with you, talking about great information that can help your listeners, man.
Likewise. It's a great pleasure, Andres. So, you mentioned in your training course, which you designed for healthcare providers on your website, which is samastahealth.com, which is SAMASTA health.com. As I quote from yourself, you say, "I quickly realized that I was being trained to give patients medications, and that many times these medications was not what the patients really needed." And then I quote you again, where you say, "If you are a healthcare provider and you are tired of prescribing medications for conditions that can be reversed or slowed with lifestyle modifications and other modalities, this is the place for you." So first of all, Anders, I'm really happy to find you, bro. I myself have difficulties finding the right medical practitioners like yourself with the right mindset that they believe the medication is not the solution, and they want to cure, to find the root cause of the symptoms and cure it. I moved to Toronto back in April 2017, and I visited 6 medical doctors, and yet I have to find the medical practitioner that has the same mindset as you and me. So it seems that people with the same type as us, who have the same mindset, the people who really will to find the root cause for the symptoms, like be a medical practitioner or a health seeker like myself, we exist. This type of people exist, but why is it so hard for me to find a medical practitioner who has the same mindset as you?
Yeah, that's a great question. That's a great question. I think because you're at the beginning of a change that's happening, and so maybe you're not gonna find so many practitioners around your area. But most of the times is for many reasons. The most specific reason that is directly related to that is because in medical school we are trained in a very compartmentalized system. So is cardiologist, gastroenterologist, every specialty. And most of the training is done through diagnosis, the ICD-10 diagnosis. And so this diagnosis gives you a treatments. And so now so that's why it's so hard, because the medical school training is just catching up to this. And so now it's just that you're starting to see integrative medicine fellowships. Now it's just that you're starting to see functional medicine training programs. Now you're starting to see all of this come up as a part of education, but it's most of the time as a postgraduate level. Very few medical schools actually have this as a graduate level. I just watched a hearing in Congress where they were trying to put 7 hours into the medical school, and it was hard. I mean, a lot of people were against it. Just 7 hours of nutrition into medical school, 7 hours,
yeah,
out of 4 years.
Mm-hmm.
So definitely there's a missing part of medical education. And so you see that out in the community. Now there is a lot of good things happening. So if you look for a functional medicine doctor in your area, an integrative medicine doctor, there's probably one within an hour or so. Major cities probably have one of these practitioners. And so, but it is not your common practice. If you go to your regular family practice, yeah, they're not going to have the same mindset or training on how to go about these changes. Some of them do, and it's changing a lot. So
yeah, I see. Well, I learned a lot. I didn't know that there is such a thing like a fellowship for integrative medicine, but I'm curious to know. So if I want to visit integrative medicine provider, is this a specific clinic, and could that person be a family doctor as well? No, it's totally separate thing from the healthcare system.
It's actually a fellowship after graduate students. So for instance, in the fellowship with the American Academy of Integrative Medicine, or there is other fellowships, but people do that after their training. So they go to medical school, they do a residency, let's say family practice or internal medicine or cardiology. A lot of my colleagues, they're different specialties. And then they do another fellowship on integrative medicine. And so it's postgraduate training even after medical school and even after fellowships and even after residency. So that's one way to go about it. So you're going to have different specialties. In terms of how to find it, if you Google integrative medicine practitioners, you'll find these doctors that are trained, or functional medicine share a lot of the same visions and a lot of the same methodologies to treat the root causes of disease.
Okay, amazing. So I learned something. Thank you.
Absolutely.
So tell us about Samasta Health. Give us some information about what you do in Samasta.
So Samasta really is a group of companies that the mission is to take people from illness to wellness and help them go through and if they're having a hard time just getting by, to a state of thriving, right? A state of thriving. So I think a good way to describe it is the Gallup study that was done. It was an international statistical company. Many of the listeners probably have heard of it. It's the Gallup company, and they did a study on what does it mean to be well. What does it mean well-being? What does that mean? And so they found out, they did the largest study on well-being across the globe. It's 150 countries.
Right.
And they realized that there is 5 specific things that have to do with someone's perception of their well-being. The interesting thing is that they scored people from suffering, struggling, or thriving, right? So they had 5 buckets, and it's physical wealth, financial wealth, community wealth, and relationships, relationships, and how they're doing in each one of these areas. And so when they come to realize, they score people whether they're struggling, suffering, or thriving. And so the crazy thing is that only 7% of the world's country are thriving. Only 7%. So only 7% of those 150 countries have thriving across all the states. The cool thing is that some countries have 97% rate of thriving, that their citizens are thriving. So they're mostly doing something right? Mm-hmm. And so Samasta is the purpose is to close that gap and to allow people and to give people tools that they can turn their lives into a state of thriving, so where they feel good. And so that's our purpose, to really close that gap and to help people maintain that state of thriving, because there's a lot of people suffering.
I see. Well, that's a great mission, but you've taken it to some extra level that I couldn't have imagined. And I think, okay, you talked about telehealth. I believe it's related to technology and Skyping. Is that something that you're using in Samasta?
Yeah, in both Samasta Health Foundation and in Samasta Health. In Samasta Health Foundation, we use it because there is a lot of places around the world that the access is very difficult because the communities are small. Mm-hmm. And putting a doctor in those communities, first of all, there is poor resources in many countries that they can't even afford to put anybody there.
I can't agree more, yeah.
Second of all, right, even if they did, it's not feasible because there is not enough population to maintain that doctor fully staffed. Mm-hmm. So, for instance, in Haiti, we are partnered with an orphanage. And so it's the way that we use technology in telehealth is that through texting, our nurse down there sends us cases. And these cases are reviewed by 5 doctors. So we also do the telehealth through texting, and then we crowdsource so that we can have more time freedom, and also so that we can triangulate our decisions. It is said that second opinion, if you get a second opinion from a doctor, 40% of the time you change your diagnosis. And so we triangulate, and through technology, we can practice in a high-tech, high-touch environment. What that means is that if we can resolve the problem through texting, like the other day we had a kid that had a fungal infection in his head, which is called tinea capitis, and his head was like almost bald. Mm-hmm. Then 3 months of treatments through the recommendation we did and of our nurse down there through text, the kid is doing well now and his hair is back, and so he's thriving and he's great. And then you take that to a high touch that if they need a face-to-face like what we're doing now, mm-hmm. then we can do that too. It is estimated by the American Telemedicine Association that about 60% of the outpatient visits to a medical practitioner is information exchange. So it can be done in a medium through the spoken word or through the written word. It's all information exchange. So we use it there. And then with Samasta Health, we use it through courses and consultations and telehealth, the same type of way.
Okay. So what if you need to basically examine a patient yourself? How would you do that from a distance?
And so, for instance, if we take the kid down there, we have a child, right? Mm-hmm. And we have our nurse down there. Texting is the first thing that we found that is really effective. If we need to move up from that, then we'll do a telehealth physical exam. And so like in Colombia, we had another project. And for instance, we can have a kiosk there. We had a kiosk there where I could listen to the kid's heart.
No way.
From here through a USB stethoscope, through a USB otoscope. And so by the time I see you, if I was going to see you or the children, I have a full medical history. I have the kids' vitals that the nurse has taken down there, their blood pressure, their heart rate, their pulse, their oxygen. And then when I examine them, I can look in their ears, I can look in their mouth. From here, I can listen to their heart.
Is that possible? You can really look into the ear through Skype conversation?
Yeah. It's pretty simple. If you think about it, just breaking it down really simple, it's a USB otoscope. So instead of, it's just like a webcam, it connects to your USB, and instead of looking at what you're seeing the person, you look at inside the eardrum. So it's just like
I'm blown away. That's amazing.
And actually, it's really interesting. The Minute Clinics, CVS, Walgreens, the Minute Clinics, they did a study in California where they had the patients walked in and choose whether they wanted a telehealth visit from a remote provider or just an in-person visit. And 30% of the people preferred the telehealth visit, the telemedicine visit, because they were able to see in the screen inside their eardrum. They were able to hear their heart. They were able to interact more with their own bodies. So 30% of the people preferred it. So it's really...
So both patient and both healthcare provider, they both see what's going on in the patient's ear, let's say.
Right.
Okay,
right.
that's cool. And you mentioned about Samasta and Samasta Foundation. Is that, can you clear us about that and say what's the difference in their missions?
Yeah, absolutely. If you think about it, I don't know if you've heard of the brand Tom shoes, right? Have you ever heard of the shoes, Tom's, right?
Yes.
You buy one and you get another one that they donate to the third world country, right? And so with Samasta Health and Samasta Health Foundation, it's the same thing. We have expertise that we've gained through Samasta Health in doing this business that can help communities around the world that can't afford them and that they don't have the access to it. And so through my travels and everything, I came and we built relationships with these remote communities, and we saw that they needed help in healthcare and community health. And so we decided to start the two branches. Really is the same mission, is to take people from illness to wellness and from living to thriving in the setting. One of them, people can afford it through their insurance or through their private pay or through their cash pay. And in Samasta Health Foundation is in locations where people cannot afford it and where there are no resources. So
I see. Thank you for that clarification. And okay, Andres, are you on fire, brother, to help people? I see, right? You are on fire to help people.
I'm on fire, man. I'm on fire.
Okay, amazing. So I'm curious to know, did you have any particular experience during your practice as a medical practitioner that basically impact you and moved you, so which put you basically on a mission to help people more? The thing that you're doing right now by helping people in distant regions and poor countries. If you have such an experience, we would love to hear what was that experience.
Yeah, you know, I think you're asking specifically, okay, you're asking specifically more an experience. Let me ask specifically like in my career to do this, or the experiences that I had to make me do this work in third world countries. Each one of the specific ones, or which one?
Any experience that you had with I don't know, weird cases, weird patients, weird locations that impacted you as someone that has that skills to help people, which moved you and put you on mission to basically extend your hand in order to help people in distant regions.
Yeah, you know, I think one of the things is that I grew up in a resource poor background. You know, I used to sell air fresheners in the streets of Colombia when I was a kid, and in the gas stations, you know, and so we grew up, you know, having to work really hard as a young kid, and a lot of people, when we were one time in the grocery store, my mom didn't have money to buy the books and the food, and the lady told her the price, and she said, you know, I only the food. So we took the foods, and we were gonna leave the books behind, and the guy behind the line said, I'll get the books. And so I realized, well, I don't know this guy. To this day, I don't know who he was, but I realize now, after learning so many things, that paying it forward is the way to pay him back.
It is.
And so that's been one of the big parts of my life, I guess. And so many people have came to help me when I was during hard times. One story that comes to mind is a village in Guatemala. This village is called Rio Negro. If you look up Google Rio Negro, it's got a very sad story. The Rio Negro massacres happened there. And there was a PBS documentary that was done about it. The massacres occurred because they were trying to build a dam and kind of complicated political situation, but they ended up killing 100 of the men of this village. All the men, they killed them all. And then the next month they came and killed all the women and children out of this village. So really hard village. I was in Guatemala with a team, and I knew about this village, and I decided just to go out there. The team was already done, and I decided just to go out there. And as I walked up, it's about a 2-hour truck ride and then 3-hour, 4-hour hike through the mountains. And I got there and I met this guy, Juan. His name was Juan, and his name is Juan. Juan told me he had a problem in his sinuses, and we were so isolated. He said, I've been dealing with this for 30 years, and they've been just giving me antibiotics. And he pressed himself with a little stick that he had, and I could feel a calcification. So I, I started seeing what I could do. And so I worked on him for like 6 hours, At one point I was kind of scared for him because he was starting to bleed through his nose. And I said, wow, I'm going to have to evacuate him or something. And I look up at the stars. I realize I'm in the middle of nowhere. And I realized then the professional isolation, what that is, not to have colleagues, because right there he needed an ear, nose, and throat doctor. And the isolation that he feels, because he's been trying to get the right care for 30 years with this thing. And so I treated him as much as I could. I got to the city. I couldn't stop thinking about Juan. And so I Googled, what's the best ENT doctor here in Guatemala City? I contacted him. The guy was amazing, and he agreed to do a surgery for Juan for free. Mm-hmm. So we set up the whole thing for Juan. Juan comes to the city, and Dr. Moazzez, I talked to Juan the morning off, and the place was opening. They were waiting for him. And I said, Juan, are you there? And he said, yeah, I'm here. And I said, have you gone in? They're waiting for you. And he said, no, I haven't. And I said, you can go in, man. They're waiting for you. And he said, are you sure? Because I don't have any money. I said, we've set this up for you, man. Like, go in. They're waiting for you. Yeah, and he said, are you sure? And so I realized there that sometimes they need a voice, yes. And that we have so much more power than what we think. Self-advocacy is important. And, he did the surgery on him, and he was all cleaned up now. And so Juan went back, and he was able to go back to work. People in his village used to not even come close to him because he was smelling so bad from this problem. And his wife was so thankful. And so that impacted me so much, man. And the story goes even farther, because then I got a phone call that Juan used for a nurse that would go up to this village.
Would you please repeat that, because the connection was cut? Please, thanks.
Yeah, so I learned through a story that self-advocacy is huge, that teaching people that they can ask for help, right? The second thing is that they need a voice, that we can help them when they don't have self-advocacy, and that access to healthcare is so important. But then this story taught me an even more deep second lesson, that I got a phone call from our partner down there saying that Juan's house had exploded, right? Because he was storing the gasoline from a boat that is so remote village that they need a boat to go up there. Right. And as soon as he let go to fill up the tank for the person going down the hill, they don't have electricity. And so the whole house blew up. And his daughter died that night. No. And I was called that his wife had been put in a hospital in Guatemala City. I understood then that she was in really big trouble, because Guatemala City, they were going through a really hard time. The doctors were not being paid, and I was scared for her life at that time. And the next morning I called Juan, and she had passed, right? And so Juan's story, all the hardships. As a 12-year-old, his whole village gets massacred. He gets taken as a child slave. Then his wife and his daughter died in an explosion. And he didn't have access to healthcare. And so he let me realize that healthcare has to do a lot with the community, right? That fires is actually one of the third leading causes of death, accidental death in the world, because people don't have electricity. So it led me to realize the importance of public health and how through one patient you can learn so much about a community and really start working on helping that community thrive. So you have to help the individual thrive and the community thrive. So that story has helped me so much and has fueled me so much, because I know there is a lot of ones out there. And so our team is on fire to meet them and to help them and to help them get the tools they need to thrive in life, you know?
Amazing, amazing. As Jack Rowling says, lead yourself, lead your team and the people in your life. And I'm so blessed to know you, and you're such a great leader. I'm really grateful to knowing you, bro.
Well, thank you, man. Same here. Same here.
Thank you. Thank you. Pleasure is all mine, buddy. So let me see what question here I have that I really was burning to ask. You just moved me away with the story that you told. It was so impactful.
And while you look at that other question, man, he taught me such a big lesson. That morning when I called him and I said, I heard that your wife passed. And I said, how are you doing? And he told me, I'm doing okay. At least she didn't get massacred. And
Wow.
so I realized resilience. And he taught me such a big lesson, man, that like, I can't have a bad day. You know, like, I can't have a bad day, man. Like,
very true, but
nobody's shooting at me, nobody's like killing my family, massacring my whole village. Like, for him, that standard is such a deep, painful place that he was able to overcome that hardship that happened. Yeah. And so he taught me an incredible lesson then, you know?
Very true. We are all blessed with so many things that we have in our lives, and we might not be appreciating them as much as we should. Very true. I'm going to jump into another document here because I was lost in the other one. This is cleaner. Okay, Andres, what do you do in your daily practice as a health practitioner when you are in a room with your patient that differentiates you from your other colleagues in the clinic?
Yeah, very interesting, man. Very interesting question. It kind of took a long time. I was actually in my fellowship, and questions that people ask made me really like, okay, I got to go back and do integrative medicine at the hospital. And so when I go into a patient's room, it took me a little while to develop the system, but the first step is to see whether they are aware that they have some empowerment in their illness and that they're willing to listen or change, because that's going to impact a lot a practitioner's burnout. Because if you're just talking to someone who is not there and looking for that information, you're just going to burn out. Yeah. Right. So that's the first thing that I do to assess, you know, I ask him, how is your overall health? It's amazing. This open question said, they start talking, I know I'm overweight. I know I do this. I know I do this. Some of them say, well, you know, I'm taking my medication and that. So I assess that. Then I ask him, how confident are you from 0 to 10 that you're going to make the changes necessary to make this happen? Statistically, they've shown, this is called motivational interviewing, and they've tested these. If people answer 7 or less, they are not likely to change anything. And so whatever you say after that, they're really not looking for it. So it's not a good place to go. And so a good place to go is to meet them where they are. And so I meet them where they are. I say, well, if it's a 3, I'm glad it's not a 2. And we have a laugh. And then how can you make it a 4? And then I move on to the next patient. So I conserve my energy and I'm not pushing him and making him feel or her bad. And so I think that differentiates putting integrative medicine. You can do it anywhere. You can do it in a hospital setting. You don't have to go to a fancy clinic. You can do it everywhere. And then the next step is I try to get to the root of the problems and what's causing the patient, whether the patient is being exposed to any toxins, any habits that are hurting him, and then take him through different tools to help them see where they can actually and empower them that they can change. And it's been really rewarding doing this in the hospital, because people tend to be very open
Yes.
because they're sick. They're feeling the pain right there and then.
Yeah.
And so they're very open about it. And so it's been wonderful, man. There is a story, a guy came in and he had pneumonia, 34-year-old guy. I go to see him in the emergency room and he can barely breathe. He's sleeping because it's like 2 a.m. in the morning and he's sleeping, but he has like, he cannot even breathe, man. And he's sweating. He just so much suffering, even in his sleep.
Yeah.
So I just waited there. I woke him up and I said, and we talked that he had an infection in his lungs. But I say, look, man, this is the least of my concerns, right? Your health once you live here.
Yeah.
We're gonna treat this infection. It's gonna get better, but once you leave here, you know. And I talked to him, and then a couple of days later, he came up to me and said, you know, thank you so much. I'm gonna change my life. And so it's amazing, man. 5-10 minutes can really impact someone. So
that's true. Okay, I'm gonna ask you something that probably nobody else is gonna ask. I am really blown away the way that you practice your basically your medical practice, asking questions and making sure that he's ready to basically take on the next steps in order to heal. And if he's okay, then everyone is happy, right? But are medical doctors, are they afraid to go into more details and ask more questions? I have such a feeling that when I visit doctors, they really avoid to ask some more questions. It seems that they don't want to get into more details. And if there is such a fear, why is it?
that's a great question. That's very insightful, man. It's a personal, I think the first layer of that, there's multiple layers to that question. The first layer is that, for instance, me, I used to not be comfortable with the question, what's the best diet? I used to not be comfortable with it. I had to go learn each diet and go experience each diet for a month or 2 months or 3 months and see, what is this diet about? What does it mean? How does it help people? And so, because in medical school, I got maybe 2 or 3 hours of nutrition.
Right. It's not enough.
So it's like, yeah, it's not enough at all. And so I think that's the first thing, that like you're not really comfortable with that knowledge.
Yeah.
As I wasn't. And so maybe for me that was. The second part is time, because I hadn't developed the tools to do it quickly.
Right on,
yeah. Then I would fear that if I bring it up, it's like going down the rabbit hole, and I'm going to be in that room for like an hour, and I have 30 more patients to see, right?
I see.
So I think that was the second fear. And then the third fear is that a lot of doctors in the community, I mean, still, despite all this data, despite all these results all over the world, what habits can do to health, there's still doctors that would criticize and other healthcare practitioners that will criticize. So I think the fear of what patients will see in retaliation also. And the last layer of that is the patient's expectation. A lot of patients come in with the expectation of getting their prescription.
It's amazing to hear that from a medical practitioner.
Yeah, and so they want their prescription. You know, they come in with an ear infection for their kid, and you say, look, all the studies show that 70% of these are viral, and they're gonna go away on its own. But a lot of them still want that prescription, so they go home. They don't have to come back, wait 5 hours on the ER. You know, so there's different reasons why they want that.
Okay.
People are obese and they have diabetes. They just want the prescriptions a lot of times. So all those layers go into it. That expectations from the system and the patients for the doctor to do that one specific thing.
I see. I have a better understanding of what's going on. Thanks.
Yeah.
So what are the exams that I, as a patient, when I walk to see a doctor, what are the exams that I should expect the doctor to do on me before asking questions?
I think there is two approaches to this. And I think I know that your work is very interesting and what you've had to go through with sensitivity and allergies and all of this and the testing for that. And that's amazing because there's so much data there. I think there's almost two layers of this. One is that a lot of patients don't have to go through this testing because the truth is that if they go in a 30-day habitual change of what they do, a lot of their diseases will go away.
Yeah.
So you don't need that expensive test, right?
Yes.
But if somebody's having trouble, if somebody's not really getting better, if somebody needs or wants to get to the exact bottom of this, there is many tests, right? If you go to a regular practitioner in the hospital, you usually get, you don't get a lot of tests. You only get blood counts, what is called the complete blood count, which checks like your level of blood and your system and everything that has to be with the blood, the white blood cell counts that fight infections. And then they do testing to check your electrolytes, like your sodium, your potassium, your kidneys, your liver.
So this is the test that here in Canada, if I basically find a new family doctor and I walk in their clinic and we agree to sign a document that he is going to become my family doctor, they run this test. Yes. My question, I'm gonna do another complimentary question, but please, go ahead. I just wanted to add some information here.
Yeah, no, that you're so right. So if you go, there is only really two tests that they'll order most of the times. It's called the complete blood count, which is the blood stuff, and then the complete metabolic panel, which is your electrolytes, your liver, your kidneys, and that's it.
Okay.
Most of the times.
Okay. So is there any other physical examination that should be done in the room when a patient comes to the doctor?
I think yeah, physical examination is definitely very important, and there is a lot of signs for different things. Just looking at the patient, first of all, what's their state? Are they anxious, depressed? That tells you so much.
Is there a checklist? I'm wondering. That's what I want to get into. Is there a checklist that the physician should basically check all the items before letting the patient leave the clinic?
Yeah, of course there is. Through residency and everything, you're taught to do a focus exam. So if the patient has respiratory issues, for instance, then you check. Of course, you got to check the lungs and the heart, and there's a specific things that you're looking for and that you have to check off in your mind. You have different checklists, and then before that, in the history, there is something called a review of systems, where you go system by system and you check the patient. Now you're asking me, and I'm telling you what you get usually, right?
As a biohacker myself, someone who's really interested to basically to achieve that higher state of performance, since we are all about community, so I wanted to get this from you. So the audience, our audience, when they want to walk into the clinic, so they know what they can expect from their medical practitioner to do in the room with them. So if it's not done, then they can remind.
Yeah, I think the review of systems, asking, this is a regular practice. If you go to your family practice doctor around the corner, they'll do a review of systems that asking you your mind, your respiration, your heart, every system one by one. Then the physical exam where they touch you, they listen, and then the lab work. But if you go to an integrative medicine or a functional medicine doctor, this is a lot different.
Okay.
The questions are going to be a lot more extensive, because they're going to ask you, how were you born? How many times were you sick when you were born? How many times were you sick when you were a kid? What type of environment did you grow up on? All these things. What is your job? What exposures do you get? How's your diet? All of it. So you can really see what's coming into the patient, all the inputs, taste, sounds, sensations, social, everything. So you can start looking at not getting a diagnosis, but developing a system and a roadmap where you can see where the patient is at and where you can take the patient. And the testing follows that. So the testing for an integrative medicine doctor or a functional medicine doctor is a lot more in depth than what you would get. It's a lot more in depth. You're looking at biochemistry, biomarkers. You're looking at the microbiome. Now you have pharmacogenomics. I mean, it's a lot more sensitivity testing. It's a lot more.
I think, Dr. Zuleta, there is not enough awareness out there in the community about these tests. And I think we should really, I might do this myself as well, or we can do it in collaboration with each other. We can put these tests and the details on our website, or create an ebook so that people can know what they expect from an integrative medical practitioner, what they expect from a regular healthcare system practitioner, and so that they decide and educate themselves beforehand, and then they decide where they want to go. Are they into seeing an integrative medical practitioner or a government healthcare provider? So they would be clear about what they want to do and what they're gonna expect in the clinic.
Yeah, for sure. If you're coming up and you need any input on that, absolutely, man. I'll be more than glad to help out with that.
Thank you. I really appreciate it because there is not many knowledge about it out there. People just walking in the clinic and they don't know what is supposed to be done on them and what's not, and it's just life passes by and no one knows what's going on with their body then.
Absolutely.
So, Dr. Zuleta, what are the characteristics of an ideal patient for you as a medical practitioner? What type of a patient with what mindset will make you really happy to see that patient walking into your clinic?
Dr. Moazzez, you just mentioned like such an important part of, if there's a healthcare practitioner that's listening to us right now, or even a health coach or biohacker or whoever, patients or clients, that is such a big thing to think about, because there is different types of patients.
There are.
And if you don't choose which type of patient, you are going to get burned out because you're not dealing with the person that you want to deal with, and you're going to be attracting to practice that you feel really drained.
Oh, so, I'm sorry, Dr. Zuleta. I would ask you, if you don't mind, to repeat that. My internet connection is not very great today. I really apologize for that. If you can repeat that, because it's very important. I really want my audience to hear that from you.
That if you're a healthcare practitioner listening to this, or a health coach or a biohacker with clients and whatever it is, that is such an important part to look at the different types of patients and choose which patient would you like to work with. Some people love to work with like people who have so many problems, so many hard problems, and take their time, and maybe they're not there wanting to change yet. And then some people want to work with the different patients who are fit already, and they just want to keep their performance from 9 to a 10. And so there's different types of patients, and choosing which patients you want to deal with and you want to treat and you want to work with in a continuous basis is hugely important for from your work satisfaction point of view. Personally, I love the patients that I know have my ideal patient is patients who have been sick for a long time, and they just had an event happen, and there's an insight that happens, and they've had enough with the life that they're having, and they're ready to change. And so they're just looking for information to take them to the next level, because they're empowered already,
Yes.
They wanna, and so that's really, I love working with that, because you can see them in such a bad shape, and then with few things, because they're already activated patients, with few things, 6 months from there, they are just like thriving, and is outstanding to see that.
Okay, okay, I see. So, what would be your advice for other people who are not basically in really bad shape, but they have questions that should be answered, and I mean, legit questions about their health? For example, I myself, I really suffer from a thick mucus behind my ears, and I myself suspect, is it a fungus problem or not? And I see to medical practice, I've seen different doctors, and they just ignore it. They laugh at me and say, no, fungus is a very serious thing, and you're okay. You're just so worried about your health. Well, it's a condition that I suffer, and I want to find the answer. So I'm not really dying from it, but I really want to know the answer. So what's your suggestion for people like me? So next time that I'm going to see a doctor, I can make a connection that he will want to help me. What I can do?
I think one of the big things is to really describe the pain.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
I
like
see.
how, okay, you have this, but why? Like, how is it affecting you?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like, this is what happens when I get up in the morning, or, you know, when I'm talking, or when I'm doing a speech, or when I'm doing an interview, or like, this is all the things that are happening that is hurting me. And so then they start to see, and then if you don't get an answer from them that helps you in some way, keep seeking. I mean, keep seeking until you find
Keep
an answer.
seeking. Yes, audience, keep seeking. Don't uh, don't basically stop by asking from one or two doctors and not getting the answer. Your patients, your symptoms are yours, and you have to take the extreme ownership of your own health. The doctor is a very sacred person, but he might not be able to give you the answer immediately, or he might not know and he can tell you, but it's you that you have to keep seeking. I really appreciate it that you mentioned this.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there is a great book called When Air Comes to Breath, and he was a neurosurgeon that was in his last year of residency, and he got diagnosed with terminal lung cancer, and he didn't even smoke. And so he was saying that when he was asking doctors, like, how much time I have left? You know, if I have a day, then I just spend time with my family. If you tell me I have 3 months, then I'll spend time with like my extended family. If you tell me I have a year left, I have then I'll just I'll write a book, right? What he realized is that what he was looking for wasn't a statistics, because the pain that he was going through cannot be relieved with a statistic. So it's almost like trying to get rid of your thirst with salt water, right? And so that what you were looking for is experiential authenticity. And so for the patient to really realize, like, what does this mean to me, and what am I going to do about it, and how am I going to find the solution so I can help other people, or so I can help myself? Like, a doctor cannot give you that.
Okay, awesome.
You know?
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up. And I would ask this, I don't know if I covered this, if you already answered this, I do apologize, but I really want to ask this again. What is the single common annoying thing that you see in all your patients that bothers you and you wish it was the other way?
Meaning like something that I wish, something that's a big problem, or that I see a lot, or
for example, all your patients may come to you, they should ask a specific question that they don't, or they should, let's say we talked about lifestyle and diets, they should probably pay more attention to their diet, but no, they're seeking for the prescription only. So what is that, but the single common thing that you see in all your patients that really bothers you and you wish that it was the other way?
I think a lot of it comes down to like education. Like, it amazes me how people with type 2 diabetes, for instance, don't really know that this is a completely reversible disease. That
Right.
is a man-made disease. And so
Very
that they
important.
don't know, right? And then right next to their bed is a soda. With this morning, for instance, a lady with 34 years old with a stroke.
Yeah.
Her soda had 56 grams of sugar. I mean, and so that's like a cup and a half of sugar.
Yeah.
But
So
you don't
massive.
feel it because you're drinking it. And plus all the chemicals and everything. But so I think that's one of the things that I see so many people in pain, and right next to their pain, a lot of times is the what's causing it.
Yeah.
You know, when you walk
Yeah.
into the rooms.
Very true.
And so, and a lot of times they haven't taken the time or they don't have the knowledge to, wow, like, and they're really amazed, like when I show them the picture of what 56 grams of sugar is.
Yes.
You know? And so I
So,
think that's something that is, yeah, you see so much suffering, you
yeah,
know?
I see. I see. I feel, I don't know about primary schools education here in North America because I wasn't educated here myself. I'm from Iran. But right now, I feel there is a lack in understanding of how basically different type of foods gets digested in our body, and when the digestion happens, what's the next level and how our cells burn those foods. We have three types of foods: carbohydrates, fats, and proteins, and they all go through different steps of digestion and burning process. As you know, there's different Kreb cycles for burning the food in our cells. Is this explained in educational system here, not medical school? But I feel this is something we as humans, we come to this world without any manual, any functional manual that to know, okay, I have this body, but how this works. I feel that lacks. Is there anything in educational system in USA, you think?
No, I'm actually working like what you mentioned. I'm working in the body's user's manual, and so I'm going through disease states and organs, so that just to teach people how their body works. But well, in medical school, you learn a lot about the Krebs cycle. But I think the actual link in between that and how it really can affect disease and everything is not really taught that much. And so functional medicine doctors are very, very experienced with all the biochemistry that goes on in the body and how it results in disease. Mm-hmm. All the toxins, the exposures, how it affects the body and how it results in disease. Yeah, functional medicine doctors are really good with that. Okay. In medical school, you learn all the mechanisms, but you don't learn a lot of the implications of it.
Mm-hmm. I see. I see. Yeah, this should be really, I think it should be taught every year in every level, in all the primary schools and high schools, so people can internalize it. All the problems that we have, that's the cause, not being educated how our body works. And then we end up in type 2 diabetes and so many other immune system issues that people suffer from.
Yeah, I agree absolutely. Like that educating our kids in that is so important, that they know their body, you know?
Yes, yes, yes. So since there is a gap between basically there's a gap that should be filled, and as you say, the functional medicine and integrative medical practitioners, they're filling that gap. Do you think that's enough, or there is a need for other people who know more about how the diet works and how all different types of foods burns in the body? Do you think that those people who are not they don't have the medical practice, but they have the science, should those people take that extra step and lead and provide help to the people that they don't know. For example, I myself, I'm not a medical school trained person. I have PhD in science, in chemistry actually, and I'm interested in the diet and nutrition and immune system issues, and I've helped a few people around me, and I have a few clients that I help with. But what is your take as a medical practitioner? Shall I go out there and shout my mission to people shall I take the leadership, or no, I have to leave it to medical practitioners like you?
You address one of the most and critical important times, and aspects of this. These must be decentralized, right? This is not only should you, but please do that. Please do that, because this is what we need. This is what we need. Dr. Mark Hyman actually explains this very well. He went to the earthquake in Haiti right after it happened. And after after working 22-hour days for a week, they finally sat down for a meal, and he asked the medical director of the hospital in Haiti, what's the most common diagnosis in this country, which is one of the poorest countries in the world? And he said type 2 diabetes, cholesterol. So this is not only our problem, right? So what happens is that he realized that the work of Paul Farmer is a gentleman, is a doctor, physician, incredible. He's worked a lot with tuberculosis, and he realized that the way to treat tuberculosis is not the doctor, but the community. The community treat the tuberculosis. The community is the one who checks on that neighbor saying, hey, this is 7 p.m. You got to take your medication. Here's the food. The community. They thought he was crazy 15, 20 years ago. But this is the way we've dealt with multi-drug resistant tuberculosis around the globe.
Wow.
And so when Dr. Mark Hyman comes back to the United States, he's having this realization that, wow, maybe the community is the one that really helps the patient heal, And so he did an interesting study. There was a pastor who has a mega church, thousands of people. And I think the pastor was overweight at that time. And so he says, well, you have thousands of people. Why don't we roll out a health program? And they combined, I think, lost about 250,000 pounds. And so many thousands of people became in this church from their medications. And so it was a great experiment, a social experiment that actually set the stage for what's coming. It's not the doctors, it's the community. It's the involvement of the community that is really going to help the whole thing, thrive, become decentralized, and people helping other people to overcome this issue.
Yes, I hear you. Yes, because there is this perception that the general public, they think that healthcare system and medical practitioner is the only source that they have to trust, and they just accept anything that the medical practitioner, who is a person like me, he might be wrong, he might be right, but people trust that. And it might be weird for them to see that someone not educated in medical school gives that some directions that they are actually helpful directions. So as you said, it should be decentralized, and I think we're going to that direction. And
absolutely.
I wish all our audience get that message, and first of all, take the ownership of their health, and second of all, educate themselves about how their body works, and third, always monitor their own symptoms and be curious to know what's the root cause of why they feel down today, why they don't have enough energy right now, what happens when they eat that steak and then they feel that they have to go to bed and sleep for a couple of hours. These are things that like internalized with us with eating foods. We think that, okay, it's natural to be full, but that fullness is actually symptom of probably food sensitivity or food allergy. It's not feeling full because you just had a huge meal or steak. Yeah, that's it. So if you have something that you can add to what I said, that'll be great. If not, I'll
Yeah,
move
I
on.
think you make me think of one of my colleagues from medical school. He had different health problems, and I just spoke to him recently, and he was telling me that that he lost so much weight, and that he got off his high. He's a physician himself, and he was so thrilled to get off his high blood pressure medication. His hemoglobin A1C for pre-diabetes came down to normal. Cholesterol medication came off. And as a physician, he went through this journey. And he said that he lost a bunch of weight, but then he hit a plateau.
But what did he do to get her symptoms alleviated and get into better shape?
Yeah, so he started eating better and everything. But the second point is of what we were talking about, that he hit a plateau where he couldn't reach any more like optimization, right? He was still needing to lose a lot more weight, and so he said, you know what, I'm gonna join a CrossFit group, right? And he did, and that's what took him to the next step.
I see.
That community, right? Like we all together, biohackers, fitness experts, all of us. Now he doesn't take any medications. He's feeling great, more energy, working out every day. I mean, he feels great. And so it's going to take all of us to do this, all of us.
Exactly. So what I wanted to conclude when I explained all those was that please, if you're listening to this podcast interview, both of us, Dr. Zuleta and me, Dr. Moazzez, we're trying to get into this fact or to convey this message that please be curious about your health and take that ownership. Ask questions. Doesn't matter. It's a medical practitioner or a biohacker or a physical fitness. Collect those knowledge and apply as you would decide. And I would be more than happy if you can contact me and ask me questions about diet and food sensitivities and how I myself cured my hay fever. I suffered from hay fever for such a long time. It started when I was 12, and then I cured it in 2015. And I believe there are so many other immune system problems that could be resolved just by fine-tuning the diet based on the DNA and the person's immune system status. So if you have any questions in that regard, you can contact me. And also Dr. Zuleta, we will be more than happy to just give you hints what you need to do next. Yeah, that's it. Consider that. Be curious about your health.
That's great. That's great. Yeah, your story is amazing, and how you were able to overcome that, and the knowledge that you have now to help other people. It's great that you're helping so many people, and I think you're so right, man. Being curious about ourselves, being curious is wonderful.
Yes, it is. Dr. Zuleta, it's been such a pleasure discussing all of this, basically, curiosities with you and getting your insight as a medical practitioner. Thank you for genuinely, authentically sharing those viewpoints with us and being generous with your time and with the insight that you provided with us in this such a sincere and honest manner. I really appreciate it, and I'm so grateful that I know you, and I'm grateful that we had the chance today to discuss these concerns with you.
Yeah, that's wonderful, and thank you for having me in the podcast, and it's been a great experience.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.